Welcome to the Soul Enchilada. I am Laura Bussey, your co-host, here with Christine Ruth, our licensed therapist. And let me ask you, if you have any annoying, hurtful people in your life, you are going to want to stay tuned because we are going to tackle what do you do with the annoying ones in your life? Are you ready for the question, Christine?
I'm already laughing. I have no annoying people in my life. This doesn't
Oh,
apply to me at all. There's no one that's ever hurt or annoyed me. So this is so irrelevant.
oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'm going to get you up to speed
No,
because I
okay,
can
what's the
count on
question?
both hands. Okay.
I hope you can tell that's sarcastic. Anyway, keep going. Read the question, Laura.
Yes, we are tackling conflict today.
Yeah.
So here's the question. I have a friend who violated my confidentiality and I'm so hurt.
Mm.
Should I talk to her or should I just forget about it? And if I choose to confront her, how should I go about it?
Mm. Ooh, oh. So touchy, so difficult. Oh, as you were reading that question, Laura, I was feeling my belly. You know, our belly is an intelligence center. And I was noticing, that my belly like cringed a little bit because I hate confronting people. I have parts that hate confronting people when I've been hurt or betrayed or when someone's doing
Mhm.
something super annoying even unintentionally and I know I need to talk with them about it. Oh, I just feel this visceral like, ooh, I feel bad for her. I know. Oh honey, I know.
I know.
Anyway, how do you feel about I mean,
Well,
what comes up for you when you read this question?
you and I have often talked. So your body holds grief or angst or
Mhm.
in your belly. Mine holds it in my throat.
Oh yeah.
So, and then I was thinking, but it's the voice. Like she's asking, should I speak? And
Yeah.
so often when I'm in conflict, I can't speak. Like
Mm,
my brain literally goes off the rails. Like I
yeah.
forget. I don't
Yeah.
even have like a good comeback. You know how some people get in a conflict and they just have these zingers? I just go
Yes.
like, oh, I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. I can't believe she just said that. I can't believe
Yeah.
that happened. So, okay,
Yeah.
let's dive into
Yeah,
this.
you have a freeze response, right? You're saying that you have a freeze response and it gets caught in your throat. And that is true for so many people, right? And it's so interesting because some doctors have done research that have found that we actually, if we hold back speaking our truth a lot, sometimes it can actually cause throat problems. It can cause problems in the musculature, it can cause shoulder problems. And so when we emotionally hold things back, whether we hold them back in our throat, whether we hold them back in our chest, whether we hold them in our belly, which are our three intelligence centers, sometimes that can manifest in actual physical symptoms, which is a whole nother podcast. But right. So I love that we're just naming that, right? That we hold our tension, our withholding parts, or our fearful parts, or our freeze parts in different parts of our body. So as I start choking. Anyway, yeah,
Parts in different parts. Okay, let's
parts
dive
and
into this.
parts. Yeah, parts and parts. So yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say, well, after giving this person plenty of empathy and compassion, because I have lots of compassion and empathy for the challenge of discerning this, is this something worth confronting or not? And I just know that a lot of women in particular, sometimes men too, maybe all genders, a lot of women have parts that have been conditioned and socialized to just let things go. Oh, I'm
Mhm,
just going to let this go. Oh, I'm just going to forgive them.
mhm,
And I think sometimes people read scripture wrong, when they read scripture and it talks about keeping peace And there's a lot of scriptures that talk about keeping peace, whether you're Jewish, Muslim, Christian, or Sikh. I think people, or any of the above, I think a lot of people interpret that to be, oh, I should just let offenses go. I should just kind of pretend this didn't happen, overlook it, try not to think about it, and move forward. Right? Like we all, we've talked about this in other podcasts that we often have conflict avoiding parts that try to keep the peace by I'm just going to forget it happened. But the problem is that there are many things, like this being one of them. When someone violates our confidentiality, that's kind of a big deal. Like that's something that I would discern that is an issue in this person's friendship. And if she doesn't talk to the person, she's not going to be able to trust her, and it may well present an ongoing rift in their relationship. Right? Like it
That's what
seems
I
like
was
it's something.
thinking.
Yeah, keep
I
going.
was thinking that because it's confidentiality, and confidentiality is based on a mutual trust between two people. And often when we share something that's close to our heart, we're exposing ourselves, we're being vulnerable. And there are
Yeah.
many beautiful gifts when we are vulnerable with someone. But
Yeah.
when that vulnerability is taken advantage of, and then you hear it from someone else that she knows and he knows and they know what you shared in private, then a
Yeah.
trust is broken. And I
Yeah.
know from working a lot on trust with women in families, with my friends, with my family, trust is really hard to rebuild. And it's
Mhm.
not going to happen just overnight, like a prayer or a
Mhm.
wish or a hope. It's going to take
Yeah.
some effort, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. This might not be something that you can just snap and forgive and heal. And it's important, I mean, so the first question I'd ask this listener is this a friendship or person that you still want in your life? Right? Like sometimes people offend us or hurt us, and they're not people we care about or have a connection with. So it's not necessarily worth confronting some random person at work that
Mm-hmm.
did something that hurt you. Um, if it's not someone that you want an ongoing relationship with, right? So I always discern, is this a battle worth fighting? And it doesn't have to be a battle. I hate using that violent language. It doesn't need to be a battle, but is this relationship worth fighting for?
Mm-hmm.
And if she says yes, I would say, okay, good. So let's get to it. And, the first thing I would say to her is that she should notice the parts that are a little anxious about talking to this person.
Mm-hmm.
And, just kind of engage with those parts. Oh, I have conflict avoiding parts. Oh, I have parts that like to avoid. Oh, I might have parts that are just anxious about bringing something up. And they're welcome. They can be here, and they don't have to necessarily hijack my system and lead the interaction. Right?
Yeah. I wanted to say one thing when you were talking about, is this a relationship worth fighting for or putting yourself out there? One of the things I've learned in my grief work is that when you love much, you
Mm.
grieve much. And
Hmm.
she wrote to us and said she is so hurt.
Yeah.
And so I think that is a sign of her own emotional awareness, that the depth of her hurt actually describes the depth of her love. Would you agree, Christine?
Yeah. Beautiful. I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. And that's right. The fact that she's so hurt says that this is someone that this is a sister or
Yeah.
a brother that's very close to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So true. And so here's the thing. here's what I first want to say. Well, not first. Second, want to say there are a few things that I would advise her not to do. Like one thing would be, don't triangulate and go tell a whole bunch of other people about how this sister has offended her, right? We often do that, meaning we either shut it down and just kind of withhold or stonewall the person, like, I'm just not going to talk to you. Or a second temptation is to go triangulate, which is to say, I'm going to talk to someone else about you, which scripture calls gossip, right? Like, I'm going to go tell other people how you hurt me and annoy me.
Mm-hmm. Like, get a team behind you. No,
Yeah, let's
we're not
build
doing
a
that.
force.
We're not building a team. This is
Right.
between the two of you. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, because there's nothing more awful than getting feedback where people come up to you and say, "Oh, me and my friends all talked about it, and we think you're a jerk," or something. Not that that has happened, but it happens a lot in churches and synagogues where people will write anonymous letters, like, to the pastor, and will be like, "Well, we've all been talking behind your back, and we think your sermon sucked." And I'm like, "Really? I mean, come on." So right, that's
Yeah.
not healthy. So
No.
don't triangulate, don't just shut it down, don't stonewall and just cut off the relationship. You know, a lot of people are tempted to do that. I'm just going to cut it off. And also don't just say, "Oh, forgive and forget." Oh, I'm just going to let it go. Um
Right.
so so those are things I'd say not to do. Um I would say what you need to do is get clear on your feeling and your need and your request, which, I'm such a broken record with nonviolent communication. But what this person did, how did it feel?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need in relationship to that? And what is your request for this person? So it might sound something like this. "Hey, Betsy," I'm just making up a name, Betsy. "Hey, Betsy, I felt super hurt when I found out that you had shared, this confidential thing with someone else." And then assume positive intent. Like, "Betsy, I don't know what was happening for you, um, what the context of that was, but I'd like to hear more about it."
Mm-hmm.
Assume positive intent, right? Like, this happened to me once when I shared a prayer concern with someone who had gotten diagnosed with cancer, and I shared a prayer concern, and it got back to this person that I shared their prayer concern, and they were really offended because they
Mm-hmm.
meant that should be confidential. It was not in a counseling setting. It was just in a church setting, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea." And I felt awful. But it was a reminder to me, like, I wasn't trying to gossip. I didn't have malintent.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fantastic to say you go in believing that there was positive intent, motivation. But what happens, Christine, because I'm playing this out in my mind, and this has happened to me before. So I go to this person because I value the relationship and I want to reconcile and I want to get my true emotions out, hoping that we can get to a better place. What happens if she immediately goes into, I didn't, like, she denies it? She's like, "I didn't tell anyone." Like, what do you
Mm,
do? Because oftentimes she's probably trying to protect herself, right?
yeah. She might have this other person might have like a defensive part that comes up and starts defending herself or denying, right? That's another protective part. And and so, right, we patiently wait for that part to express itself. Okay, your defensiveness, you're denying, you're whatever, and say, "Okay, so, okay, that being the case, I still felt really hurt, that found out about this, and maybe I got misinformation, but here's what happened for me. And I need reassurance that it's not going to happen again, for instance. I need context to understand how this got brought up. And I need some sort of commitment from you um,
Mm.
that I can, you know, that my secrets are safe with you because I really value our friendship. Right. And so then that's the request too. Like, um, I just, my request is that, you know, that we're really clear about confidentiality in our friendship because I really value this and really want
Mhm.
to be able to move forward. I mean, that would be an example of a
Mhm.
feeling, a need, a request.
Right. I love how you brought the value into this because that might be something even to think about before you go to this person. What do I value about this relationship? And why would I
Mhm.
want it to continue? And it makes me think
Mhm.
of, I think it was Jesus's teaching in Matthew 18, where people are talking about conflict. And he says, well, if your brother or sister hurts you, or I think it was like sins against you, then
Mhm.
go to that person. Just you go to
Mhm.
that person. So I
Yeah.
think that's a value. Just
Yeah,
being,
go to that person in private, it says, right?
yeah,
Go in private.
exactly. In private. Like, don't make this a spectacle. Go to that person in private. Don't include the whole small group or this whole family or whatever. Go to that person one on one in private with your values in place. In with, you said, what do I feel? What do I need? What is my request? So you've kind of prepared yourself for that. Now, what
Mhm.
if that fails? Like, what if that's a complete flop? And let's say the conflict then erupts even more.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do we do
Mhm.
then?
Okay, I'm not laughing. It's not funny, but it's really hard because I don't really know, like that often does happen, right?
I
Like that
know.
I feel and I need and making a request backfires, meaning someone gets really defensive or they might have a shame response, which is to say, "Oh, just forget it. I'm an awful friend. I'm just let's
Mm,
never talk again," which is a shame response, like shut down.
hmm.
Or they might, get, defensive, like, "Are you calling me a liar?" Or they might just withdraw because they're shaming themselves and they're embarrassed. And so they
Mm.
might sometimes people will just cut you off because you've tried to address something with them, you
Right.
know?
I mean, I'm thinking of people who really dislike conflict, like
Yeah.
they run from conflict. So you approach them and you're saying all of these beautiful words, but still all they hear was that, oh my gosh, I'm caught. I need to run. I need to flee. And I can picture a time in my life where I tried to address the conflict and the person
Mm.
cried and cried, and she got so emotional. The next thing I'm doing is comforting her and like trying to make everything better and pretending like it didn't hurt, but it still really
Mm.
hurt.
Mhm.
So I mean, what
Yeah.
should I have done in that situation when she was crying hysterically and not accepting any of the things that I said?
Yeah. Well, right? So then it becomes kind of about her, right? And
Mm.
so at that point, you know, all you can really do is give people time
Mhm.
sometimes, right? Time to sit with their emotions and continue to reiterate your vision or dream for the relationship, you
Mm.
know? So, I have to do this with my partner all the time. Like when I'm confronting, in IFS circles, we call this self led feedback, which is, giving people feedback from self, which is coming from a place of compassion and
Mhm.
curiosity, you know, that I'm not blaming, I'm not criticizing. If we blame someone or criticize them, they will get defensive 100% of the time. Right. So she could go up to this friend and say, "You violated my confidentiality and I'm so angry and I'm so hurt." And that friend will very likely get defensive because
Mm,
that's a natural response to criticism or any sort of blame or accusation, right? And so you know the key is to move into self-led feedback, which is how do I go to my friend with with compassion and curiosity about why it happened, but still being clear and assertive about how it landed for you, right? Hey, here's how it landed for me. And I like to use the language of here's how it landed for me because often it wasn't the person's intent, right? It
mhm,
wasn't their intent for it to land that way. But when I found out that you were talking to blah about something private we shared, the story I told myself, that's a Brene
mhm,
Brown one, and we've talked about that. The story I told myself is that you don't care about me or you don't value my confidentiality, or the story I told myself is that I can't trust you.
mm.
But here's the deal. I really want to trust you. I really value this relationship. And so I really am curious about what happened, what came up for you, because here's how it landed for me.
Mm. This is amazing. This takes courage. I mean, we just keep
Yeah.
saying more C words: curiosity, compassion,
Mhm.
confronting, and courage, because it's almost like you're putting the other person ahead of yourself. Like you're bringing
Mhm.
yourself to the table, but you're also, by being curious and compassionate, you're thinking there's more to the story than just this simple what you've told yourself, right?
Yeah.
That is so
Yeah.
amazing, Christine. I love that. Wow. Where did Brene Brown write about that? I'm curious.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. I think it's in Daring Greatly. I think it's in
Mhm.
Daring Greatly where she talks about the story I'm telling myself
Mhm.
about what you just said is dot dot dot. But it could be in Braving the Wilderness. Anyway, it's in
We
one
can
of
look it
Brene
up.
Brown's
I'll put
books.
it in the show
But
notes.
I've heard her so many times in person live that I can't remember which one came off as stories, but she, shares that phrase all the time when she's talking to her partner. The story I'm telling myself about what you just did there is that you don't value me, right? The story I'm telling myself about you leaving your dishes in the sink is that you don't care about my well-being, and so that gets to the heart of the matter, like what's
Mhm.
underneath. And that's the hardest thing I think about
Mhm.
these sorts of interactions is that we very quickly move into judgment, move out of curiosity and into judgment about other people's actions, and we give ourselves the benefit of the doubt. We always assume positive intent with ourselves.
Yes.
I'm such a nice, winsome person.
Busted.
And yeah, yeah. But with others, we go straight, our brain, our brains are wired to survive. So
Mhm.
they go straight into judgment and protection.
Mm. Somebody needed to hear that, including me. But somebody needed to hear that, because I think you just said it. We are wired for survival. And so
Mhm,
we don't want to get back in that situation again. So we're remembering what hurt us,
mhm,
and that judgment comes so quickly, and trying to protect
mhm.
ourselves. We don't want to go back into that space and get hurt again. But
Yeah.
if this relationship is worth it, then I'm going to encourage her:
Mhm,
go in there and be honest. Share
mhm,
your story. I love that. Share your story.
mhm,
Be compassionate. Be curious.
mhm,
Have a positive
mhm.
intent. And my guess is their relationship could even be stronger and deeper and build more trust. Is that possible, Christine?
Oh, no, not at all. Yes. It is so possible. In fact, it's probable. It's
Yeah.
probable. And this is the work of intimacy. And I'm just like, if I get on any soapbox, it's like, yay, conflict leads to intimate relationships if it's done well. And so, yes, let's do intimacy. Let's not just avoid each other or move communities, move friends every time someone hurts or offends us. Let's do the hard work of intimacy. And it's so healing and satisfying. So
And
you
so
go, girl.
Powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So powerful.
Mm-hmm. And that, my friends, is episode 40.
We're 40 years
crap.
old.
40. I don't remember being 40. Of the Soul and